August 16, 2023. Good day all. This is a message from Sierra Victor. An Infantryman's Guide to Combat in Built-Up Areas. FM 90-10-1 by the United States Department of the Army as written and released in 1995. We continue with Chapter 2 Urban Analysis. Intelligence preparation of the battlefield, or IPB, is key to all operations conducted in built-up areas. Intelligence is an important part of every combat decision. To succeed as fighters in built-up areas, commanders and leaders must know the nature of built-up areas. They must analyze its effect on both enemy and friendly forces. The focus of the material presented in this chapter will be on those issues of urban analysis that commanders and their staffs must be aware of before conducting the IPB process. Each model of an urban area has distinctive characteristics. Most urban areas resemble the generalized model shown in the picture below, see the PDF. Cities of the world are characterized by density of construction and population, street patterns, compartmentalization, affluent and poor sections, modernization, and presence of utility systems. The differences in built-up areas are in size, level of development, and style. The spatial expanse of cities throughout the world in the last 3 decades presents problems for MOUT. The increased use of reinforced concrete framed construction is only one example of the trend to use lighter construction, which affects how forces will attack or defend such an area. Another example is the growing apartment complexes, shopping centers, and truck-related industrial storage that lie on the outskirts of towns and cities. This change in style causes offensive action to be more difficult and enhances the defense of such an area. Terrain and weather analysis. Terrain analysis for urban combat differs significantly from that of open country, whereas a weather analysis does not. Although special considerations peculiar to the urban environment must be considered, a weather analysis for urban combat is mostly the same as for other operations. Special terrain considerations. Several special considerations have implications in a terrain analysis and must be considered when developing the tactical plan for combat. Special terrain products must be developed to include specialized overlays, maps, and plans augmented by vertical or handheld imagery. The depiction of go, slow go, no-go, obstacles, avenues of approach, key terrain, observation, and fields of fire, and cover and concealment must focus on the terrain analysis. Military maps, normally the basic tactical terrain analysis tool, do not provide sufficient detail for a terrain analysis in built-up areas. Due to growth, towns and cities are constantly adding new structures and demolishing existing ones. Therefore, any map of a built-up area, including city maps or plans published by the city, state, or national government, will be inaccurate and obsolete. The nature of combat can radically alter the terrain in a built-up area in a short period. Incidental or intentional demolition of structures can change the topography of an area and destroy reference points, create obstacles to mobility, and provide additional defensive positions for defenders. Maps and diagrams of sewer systems, subway systems, underground water systems, elevated railways, mass transit routes, fuel and gas supply and storage facilities, electric power stations and emergency systems, and mass communications facilities, radio, telephone, are of key importance during urban operations. Sewer and subway systems provide covered infiltration and small unit approach routes. Elevated railways and mass transit routes provide mobility between city sectors, and point to locations where obstacles might be expected. Utility facilities are key targets for insurgents, guerrillas, and terrorists, and their destruction can hinder the capabilities of a defending force. Certain public buildings must be identified during the terrain analysis phase of an IPB. Hospitals, clinics, and surgical facilities are critical because the laws of war prohibit their attack when not being used for military purposes other than medical support. As command and control breaks down during urban operations, hospitals become an important source of medical support to combat forces. The locations of civil defense, air raid shelters, and food supplies are critical in dealing with civilian affairs. The same is true during insurgency, guerrilla, or terrorist actions. Stadiums, parks, sports fields, and school playgrounds are of high interest during both conventional and unconventional operations in built-up areas. They provide civilian holding areas, interrogation centers, insurgent segregation areas, and prisoner of war holding facilities. These open areas also provide helicopter landing sites. They provide logistic support areas and offer air resupply possibilities because they are often centrally located within a city or city district. Construction sites and commercial operations, such as lumber yards, brick yards, steel yards, and railroad maintenance yards, serve as primary sources of obstacle and barrier construction materials when rubble is not present or is insufficient. They can also provide engineers with materials to strengthen existing rubble obstacles or with materials for anti-tank hedgehogs or crib-type road blocks. Roads, rivers, streams, and bridges provide high-speed avenues of movement. They also provide supporting engineer units locations to analyze demolition targets and to estimate requirements for explosives. Public baths, swimming facilities, and cisterns are useful in providing bathing facilities. They also provide an alternate water source when public utilities break down. Special weather considerations. Rain often floods basements and subway systems. This is especially true when automatic pumping facilities that normally handle rising water levels are deprived of power. Rain also makes storm and other sewer systems hazardous or impassable. Chemical agents are washed into underground systems by precipitation. As a result, these systems contain agent concentrations much higher than surface areas and become contaminated hotspots. These effects become more pronounced as agents are absorbed by brick or unsealed concrete sewer walls. Many major cities are located along dams, lakes or rivers, which often creates a potential for fog in the low-lying areas. Industrial and transportation areas are the most affected by fog due to their proximity to waterway. Air inversion layers are common over cities, especially cities located in low-lying bowls or in river valleys. Inversion layers trap dust, chemical agents, and other pollutants, reducing visibility, and often creating a greenhouse effect, which causes a rise in ground and air temperature. The heating of buildings during the winter and the reflection and absorption of summer heat make built-up areas warmer than surrounding open areas during both summer and winter. This difference can be as great as 10 to 20 degrees, and can add to the already high logistics requirements of urban combat. Wind chill is not as pronounced in built-up areas. However, the configuration of streets, especially in closed orderly block and high-rise areas, can cause wind canalization. This increases the effects of the wind on streets that parallel the wind direction, while cross streets remain relatively well protected. Light data have special significance during urban operations. Night and periods of reduced visibility favor surprise, infiltration, detailed reconnaissance, attacks across open areas, seizure of defended strong points, and reduction of defended obstacles. However, the difficulties of night navigation in restrictive terrain, without reference points and near the enemy, forces reliance on simple maneuver plans with easily recognizable objectives. Thank you for listening or reading this message. In our next message we will continue with Chapter 2. Threat Evaluation and Integration. Please feel free to use and distribute as needed. Our messages are not by any means enticing you to a revolution of sorts, but rather to equip you with the necessary theoretical background in order to assist local armed forces or police in stabilizing a SHTF situation. Please contact any admin on any Sierra Victor group for our previous material or search for our channel on YouTube. We wish you well. Sierra Victor.